your main textbook. This is your science order and design. This is the main one for you. I highly recommend that you go ahead and get out a pen so that you can take good notes, or a highlighter, or something that you can use to mark your book first off. Or if it makes you feel better to write in a separate piece of paper, you can write down the terms on a separate piece of paper. Whatever makes you feel better about it. That is what you want to do and what works best for you. So let's go ahead and let's open up that textbook first, your main one, so we can go over the table of contents section, so we can go over what you're going to be learning in this class. This is life science. I like to call this class baby biology because it helps you ready for your biology classes later on once you're in high school. So this one gives you kind of like a nice preview over what's going on in this class and what you're going to be learning. That first chapter is all about science and imitation of science. You're going to learn about the scientific method. You're going to learn about how do we use science, what counts as science, what doesn't count as science. So that is just kind of like an introductory chapter, like this first couple of days. The second chapter is all about plants. Does anyone know already what is the study of plants, or what do we call the study of plants? If you don't, you'll learn later on. Does anyone know? Raise your hand. Evie? That's the plant process, so you're partly right. Anyone know what we call the study of plants, though? If you don't know, it's okay. We're going to learn later on today. All right, but that's botany. So we're going to learn about the land. So we're going to learn all about flowering plants first off. So photosynthesis, the difference between a monocot and a dicot. Don't worry, you'll learn very soon what each of those means. We're going to learn about flowers first off. Flip page. Chapter 3 is talking about your body. So we're talking about your different body systems, what makes up your body, tissues, cells. How do you take care of your body? Because you want to take care of your body. Your body, you hopefully will last a very long time. And so you want to be able to keep it healthy and keep it alive as long as possible, as long as God wants you to live on the earth. So chapter 5 is all about creation and science, talking about creation as how the Bible talks it, but then also from a scientific standpoint. Can we prove creation? Can we prove evolution? Which one's the better one for science? Now, we know as Christians what we believe because of what the Bible says, but you also need to be able to talk to other people and say, yeah, this is what the Bible says, but does it match up with what science says as well? What is science supports it? Is there problems with it? So once we get to that section, this one's really fun, at least for me. I really like it because we get to talk about, you get to give reasons as to why you believe it. Not just because the Bible says it, which is always a good reason, but you can also say, here's scientific evidence for it as well. And as a side note, creation matches up with what science says much better than evolution. But we will talk about both of them once we get to that section. Alright, on the other page it talks about mammals, birds, fish and reptiles, amphibians. What are all those examples of? Someone raise your hand. Jaden? Animals. So this is the animal section. Does anyone know what we call the study of animals? If you don't know, it's okay. We're going to learn later on. Alright, we call that zoology. Kind of like it has the word zoo. Remember, Jaden? Raise your hand. It's okay. But remember, it sounds kind of like you're saying zoo. So animals live in a zoo. So zoology. You pronounce it slightly different, though. So that's what these chapters are on. Chapter 6, Chapter 7, Chapter 8. Alright, flip the page. Last section for it is insects and the assorted invertebrates. Invertebrates includes the arachnids. Anyone know what an arachnid is? Spiders. So that's a fancy name for a spider. So technically they're not a true insect. Let's stick them in a slightly different category. That's part of the reason why they're in this little separate section for it. So all those chapters are about animals. Students typically love those chapters. That's the reason why they have so many chapters for them, is because it's in a lot of cases students' favorite chapters. We get to talk about talk about your pets in some cases. We're talking about different types of animals that maybe you've never even seen or heard about. Alright, chapter 11, we talk about the really tiny plants and animals that God created. These are the ones that we have to use a microscope to see. This section is about microbiology, or itty bitty life. So that's part of the reason why we study it a little bit separately, because it's still living. It's just extremely, extremely, extremely small. We just can't see it with our own eyes. Alright, last two chapters on the next page you have, so if it's about plants, what is the study of plants? You remember from what I said earlier? Alright, Jaden?
Like Bach something?
Close.
Oh,
alright.
biology. Wait, no.
Not biology, but it's no. Life. We'll get there.
Botany?
Botany. So that's part of the reason how come they split up a little bit differently. So we study more of flowering plants at the beginning of the year. Then we come back and talk about really big plants, trees, later on at the end of the year. So they kind of just split them up just a little bit. And then the last chapter has to do with ecology, or living together. That's what ecology basically means. Starts talking about how do you have plants and animals live together. Some animals like to live together. Some animals should not live together, or they don't need to be around each other. Like, for example, if you have a cheetah and a gazelle, will the gazelle be very happy if there's a cheetah in the area for very long? Let's see, Lana?
No.
No, the cheetah will probably be very happy, but the gazelle will probably decide, I should move, like today. And so that's part of the reason as to how come animals, they have different relationships, or how they live together, or how they move around. And in some cases, how humans, how they live with the animals as well. Alright, anyone have any questions about what we're learning about in this section before we start getting into the actual start learning? Alright, your book gives you some useful sections over how to use this text. This is kind of interesting. I'm going to give you a whole, like, basically page, 2 pages, just explaining to you how to use it. So, most of it you probably are familiar with the idea of you have the bold terms, the really thick letters. Those are key ideas and concepts. The italicized terms, the ones that look like they're slanted or tilted, you should really know that anything that's bold or anything that's italicized, your book is trying to give you a hint, tell you, now this right here. So you should probably want to mark everything that's bold and everything that's italicized. Most of the time, those stuff will be on my board as well, and I will tell you, you need to know this. So you want to know this. But as you're doing your homework, if you see it bold or italicized, it's giving you a heads up telling you, you should really know this. So that'll help you out for it. We also have several featured articles, creation clips, science experiments, or stuff you can try at home. We might not have time to do all of it in class. Some of it we do it in class, but if you put your arm down, remember it's day one, we're still practicing. But that's part of the reason as to how come we want to do everything in class. You are more than welcome to do some of it at home as well. Your book points out as well, there's section reviews and chapter reviews. Most of those will be part of your homework, so you don't have to worry about answering every single one right this second. But if you're getting ready to study for like a quiz or a test, and you read through those terms and definitions, and you go, I don't know this, you should probably go back and study it a little bit more. Or if you think, I know this one, I know this one, I know this one, okay, I'm probably ready in case we have a quiz or a test or something else that's coming up. Just to help you get ready for it. Alright, look at the study tips on that page in that little like greenish blue box. That is super helpful. Do your homework right after school in study hall. While you learn, while what you learn is still so fresh in your mind, it'll help you to do your homework immediately. What happens if you wait too long? Lana?
You'll forget what it even, like, you'll forget, what you even learned.
Yeah, or you might think, okay, what was Miss Moore's talking about? That was a long time ago. What am I learning? So it'll help you to do it as soon as you can. Now, I know you have classes right after my class, so I don't expect you to do it immediately. But you probably want to do it during study hall, or you want to do it typically as soon as you get home, because it's still fresh in your mind. If you wait till 9, 10 o'clock at night, not only are you tired, but you probably won't be able to remember as well what you're thinking about. Alright, review daily. We cover a lot of terms and definitions. Some things you just have to memorize, you just have to know. So because of that, you want to review every single day. You review in class, and that'll help you out, but you want to review every single day on your own as well. Note key terms and ideas by highlighting them or recording them in a notebook. That's what I was talking about. Either mark it in your book with a highlighter or write it down on a piece of paper. That'll help you out. Summarize or outline the text in your own words. That'll help you to make sure that you know what you're talking about. Make flashcards of terms and definitions. That one's super helpful. And if you make flashcards of terms and definitions, the next one's easier. Have a friend help you review. You can take turns teaching the material to each other, or you can play review games against each other, and you can make fun of your friend for not knowing the information. So it'll help you to be able to make review flashcards, and you can see how many of these do I know. Like, let's say if I teach you 10 terms and definitions today. Well, you should know after class, okay, if I make these flashcards, then if I make them for all 10, and I can do all 10 without looking, then that means I learned everything for today. And if you do it a little bit every single day, it'll help you learn the material that much faster and that much easier for you. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's flip the page and let's get started getting into Invitation to Science. So studying God's creation. Now, I love science. I think science is cool because science has a lot of different parts to it. There are many different parts of science, whether you're talking about animals, plants, your body, how rocks form, how do you have radioactive material. I love science. Now, in this class in particular, with life science, we're obviously studying things that are alive because this is life science. Now, do make a note of that first italicized sentence. The purpose of science is carefully observing nature, discovering the laws of creation, and using these laws for man's benefit. this is the purpose as to how come God told us to study nature and then to subdue nature. We're to use it for man's benefit to help out man. Now that doesn't mean we should go around and burn down all the trees because it's for man's benefit. No. You should still be careful and take care of God's environment, take care of God's world, but ultimately we're to use it to help out humans and to help out humans have a better life for it. That's part of the reason as to how come I like science though, because I like to discover, I like to understand how things work and why things work and why did my plant do this. Now I love plants, but plants don't like me and I kill plants very easily. But I like to know, why did my plant die? It's a cactus. What did I do? How did I kill it? What did I do to kill it? And so that's part of the reasons how come I like to study nature. I like to learn how things work and why they work that way. I like to discover the different laws of creation. Like for example, plants need 3 basic things. Anyone know what's one of the 3 basic things that a plant needs? Lynn? Sunlight. Anyone else know it? Jaden? I'm sorry, not Jaden. Lana?
Water.
Water. And then what's the last one? It's okay? It's alright? Soil. Those are the 3 basic things. So if I were to give my plant milk instead of water, what would happen to my plant? Anyone think they want to know? Rick, let's raise your hand.
Probably die.
It would probably die. So I mean that's kind of like a law of nature. Plants need water. They need soil. They need sunlight. So if I stick my cactus in the closet, my cactus is not going to grow very long. It needs sunlight. Even though it's more of a desert plant, it still needs sunlight. So that's why I have like the laws of nature. Alright, your book gives you, gives you the verse in the middle of this kind of first column, just pointing out this is God's command to Adam and Eve. Now because you've heard my voice for so long, I like to give students another chance to be able to talk in class, that way they can use their voice instead. Does anyone want to read the verse? Alright, since it's the first day, I'll still read it, but I'm probably just going to start calling volunteers starting tomorrow to read. Alright, so be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth on the earth. God is telling humans to be fruitful and multiply. God wanted humans to multiply because we are his most special part of creation. So he's telling us to be fruitful, multiply, have lots of kids, take over basically the whole earth. But he's also saying have dominion, or to be able to use it. So over the fish, over the fowl, or the birds, and over everything that moveth on the earth. Now again, it doesn't mean abuse it. You shouldn't go around and kill all the animals just because God said because God said we're the best part or the most important part. No. God still wants to take care of it, but at the same time we're to use it for man's benefit. That's part of the reason why we study it. Alright, so the first major section of the term that you've talked about is biology. So biology means the study of living things. Your book talks about the different prefixes and suffixes on a later page, so we'll get to that. But bio, this first part, literally means life. So this is bi, and then ology, or lology, means the study of. So if you put the 2 parts together, biology is literally the study of life, or life the study of if you want to do it literally, but for English speakers we typically flip it to say it's the study of life. So make a note of that term in your book. This is the study of living things. This is called life science or biology. Now, make a note of that. This is the study of living things. So if it's non-living, is it part of biology? Scott? No. So are rocks part of biology? Danielle? No, because they're not alive. What about like the building, like your school? Is your school part of the study of biology? Jenny? No. Now, what about the students? Like all of you in the class? Edie? Yes. They are, because you are obviously alive. So biology is the study of living things in particular. Alright, so a couple of other terms you need to notice. You'll see at the top of the next column on that page. A biologist. This is a scientist who studies biology. That makes sense. And then also you have the word organism. An organism is a living thing. Instead of saying living thing over and over and over again in your textbook, scientists got tired of that, so they said organism. This just means a living thing. So Lana is an organism, Hayden is an organism, Jaden is an organism, Lynn's an organism, Scott's an organism, Danielle's an organism, Eva's an organism. Your desk is not, because your desk is not a living thing. Alright, so that's the idea behind it. So organism is a living thing, so your pets are living things. Your parents is an example of an organism. Your pet is an example of an organism. If it's alive, it's an organism. If it's not alive, it's not. So just those 2 terms, make a note, and this is pretty easy so far. Alright, there's a couple of different branches of biology that you need to know. Now biology is the major branch for it. That's the main one. But there's a couple of different offshoots or little sections of biology that scientists like to use so it's a little bit easier to study. Like for example, we have zoology down here. Alright, now again, we talked about this one loosely earlier. Now I know it looks like zoology, Zoology is the study of zoos. Zoology is the study of animals. So again, this one's a little bit funky, but we pronounce it zoology, not zoology. So just be careful for that one. So this is the study of animals. We've already talked about this. Botany, I've referenced a couple different times. Botany is the study of what, Danielle? Plants. So this is the study of plants. Ecology, I talked about this one earlier. Anyone remember what ecology is? I know I said it kind of fast. All right, Danielle? All right, Glenn? That's close. That's part of biology. Remember, biology is the study of living things, so life, study of. So ecology, if you don't find it, it's okay. We'll talk about it in a second. I just don't know if anyone remembered. All right, ecology, make a note for that one. That one, yes, Jaden?
Is study of like how people live together.
Good job. It's kind of on the little next section, on the top of the next page. If you're looking for it, going, where is it? It's at the top of page 3. You'll see ecology. This is the branch. This one links the branches of biology together. So if you want to remember, it's how plants and animals live together, or how living things live together. So just make a note of that. The study of organisms interacting with their surroundings and with each other is called ecology. I skipped over microbiology in the text because I haven't gotten around to that point of the tree. But microbiology, I talked about this one earlier. Does anyone remember what was it talking about? Evie? So really small things. So this is microbiology. What is this probably the study of?
It's called the ones that are too small to see.
So this would be like small life study of. Is how we would probably read it literally, but we would say this is just the study of microscopic life. Is how we would put it loosely. So microbiology, make note of this one. All right, this one's long. Human anatomy and physiology. This one is a long one. Now human, you obviously know what that is. All right, anatomy has to do with the structure of something. Your book gets it, it's at the top of page number 3, if you're looking right underneath the tree on that page. So human anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is the study of an organism's shape and structure. So if you're looking like at your arm, this is your arm. This is the anatomy of it. You might know that there are 2 different bones on the inside of this part of your arm. You'll learn them later on if you don't know. So your radius and your ulna. You have those 2 bones on the inside. You have several muscles in this section, but more tendons. So that's just studying the different parts of your arm. If you look up at this top part of your arm, you have a major bone here. Does anyone know what this major bone is called? You probably learned this one in elementary already. All right.
Bicep?
Which one?
No, bicep?
Okay, that's the muscle. Good job for that one. So that's a part of it. I have a little baby bicep, but it's okay. So you have your muscles. Anyone know what the bone is in here? If you don't know, it's okay. We'll learn it later. All right, your humerus. So there are those are the 2 parts of your top part of your arm. So that's that's an example of your anatomy. What parts are there? What is it? How many of them are there? What's it made of? So that's the structure and the shape of it. Physiology, if you're looking at this part of it, the human physiology, that has to do with how does it move, how do we use it. Like for example, your bicep muscle, that helps pull this part of your arm forward towards your elbow. That's what helps whenever you do this. It starts to constrict or get firm, unless it's mine and it doesn't. But that's part of the reason as to how it comes, it's pulling it forward. This muscle down here, your triceps, pulls your arm back down. So that's the idea of the physiology. What does your body do? How does it move? What does it function for? So they'll make a note of that. That is the study of how an organism's structure functions. So anatomy has to do with all the pieces, while physiology has to do with how does it move or how does it function, if you want to think of it that way. Alright, so you already have a whole bunch of terms right now. We've only been talking with actual science for about 10-15 minutes. You should know what biology is so far. So far, what is biology, Danielle?
Study of life.
Study of life. What's a biologist? Jaden?
Person who studies it.
Good job. What's an organism?
Microscopic things.
Okay,
Or
Amy.
like human people.
So it's a living things?
things.
So just living things? Yep, so that's an organism. Now zoology, what zoology? Lana?
Study of animals.
Study of animals, botany, study of plants, ecology, Scott? Good job. And then microbiology, Danielle? Okay, what does micro mean?
Not being able to look at things unless I'm organisms under a microscope.
Good job. So are they really large or are they really small?
They're really small.
So this is small, and then biology?
Is it study of life?
Good job. So this is study of really small life. So that's what microbiology is. Yes, actually. So some cases, yes. All right. So human anatomy. What's anatomy mean, Jaden?
I have to think, like, what the thing is.
Good job. So like the different parts. And then physiology is what? Someone raise your hand. Right?
How the thing moves.
Good job. So again, we've already gone through a lot of terms. So make sure you're keeping on top of it and that you're studying. You don't want to get too far into it and realize, oh, we have a lot. Yes. So make sure that you are making those flashcards and studying and paying attention. Alright, so meaning of life. How do you know something's alive? Now obviously you would go, that's alive. That is not. So how do you know? Now you might think, well, because it moves or because it does something else. So there's something scientists say, here's some things that we use to help say, this is alive. This is not. Did you have a question, Evie? Okay, just making sure. So, organized structure, we're going to talk about this in a little bit different, but that's one example for it. So, all living things have 5 major characteristics in common. You want to mark that on the bottom of page 3. You'll see it right next to the cheetah, that italicized phrase. So, all living things have five characteristics in common. They have an organized structure, they grow, they respond to changes in and around themselves. I just put respond to environment because I was running out of room. And environment is just what's around an organism. So it's kind of like a habitat, so it's kind of like the same idea. They reproduce, and they also carry on metabolism. We'll talk about what metabolism is in a minute. So, like for example, they have an organized structure, how their bodies are put together. Some of you might have a kitten or a cat now, and so you know that your cat has a very organized structure. A rock might have pieces, but depending on what type of rock you're looking at, they don't have the same type of like rock shape for every single type of rock. Depending on how the rock breaks or how it gets formed either by lava, it might not have the exact same structure. But your cat typically should have the same type of body structure. Your cats grow. Now eventually your cat or dog reaches a point where they no longer stop, when they no longer keep growing, they stop at that point. They have reached their adult size at that point, typically. Now, your cat might start growing in width if you keep but it's they're not going to get any taller. So they grow. They respond to their environment. If you poke the rock will not hiss at you. If it does, you need to go get help. Something is wrong. But if you have a kitten, you probably know some things. If you do it to your kitten, the kitten starts to purr or starts to mark or starts to get really happy. Some things makes your kitten very unhappy, and it lets you know pretty quickly, either by hissing or scratching you and letting you know, I am unhappy. And so it's telling you, it responds to the environment. Reproduce, that just means it'll make more babies. So because of that, your cat might have been to the vet already, so that way your cat cannot have kittens later on, or to where it can't help a female cat have kittens, and that's okay, and that happens. But typically, out in the wild, God designed living things to be able to have babies and to keep multiplying. What would happen though if you didn't have animals have the ability to be able to make babies? What eventually happens to those animals? How do they go?
They'll die and you won't be able to have a kitten because there's none in the store.
Yeah, they will all die. Does anyone know what we call animals that are not alive today at all? Extinction. Yeah, so something like the dinosaurs. There's no more of them, so we can't have them. So various things, they have all died out. And so because of that, we don't have them anymore. So this is why some people, whenever they start talking about how there's not a lot of an animal in the environment or out in the wild, people start to get really nervous. This is why we have a lot of people, some reasons why we have zoos, to help the animals that are endangered. We want to make sure that they can still keep having babies. And in the wild, for whatever reason, either loss of habitat or too many predators or something else in the environment, is making it to where it's too dangerous for them. That's part of the reason why we have zoos. And then, in the metabolism, life processes, we'll talk more about what this means in just a minute. But they carry on life processes. They are doing something to stay alive. The rock is just chilling out there. The rock's not having babies. The rock is not carrying on life process. It's just sitting there. It's not doing anything, so it's not considered alive. Alright, so organized structure is the first thing your book's talking about at the top of page 3. So your book's talking about that all living things are made with an order and carefully structured design. Now the first thing it talks about is a cell. And make a note of what the cell is. This is the smallest unit of a living thing. You can't get any smaller than that. They start saying, okay, your body is made up of different systems and tissues and organs, and you start getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's made up of cells. The cells are as small as we can go with a living thing. If you break apart the cell is dead. You can't go any smaller than that. So cell is the smallest thing. Sometimes there are very small animals or plants that are just made up of one single cell. We call this a unicellular organism. Anyone know what a unicycle is? Alright, how many wheels does a unicycle have? One. So uni actually means one. So this one makes sense. Unicellular organism. This is a single cell living thing. So you have to put all of it together. Unicellular organism. You have to know all those different terms. So unicellular, one cell, organism, living thing. This is an example of a paramecium. We'll actually talk about these later on in your textbook. But this is a whole living itty bitty animal, but it's made up of just one cell. And there's a couple of other ones we'll talk about. Alright, we're actually going to go ahead and stop there. So go ahead and take up your assignment pads so we can write down the homework for tonight. We'll talk more about this book tomorrow. You don't need it tonight, but we'll talk about when you're going to use it. So bring it back tomorrow for you though. Alright, so read pages, or review over them, 2 through 5. So read pages 2 through 5. And then for your homework, read pages 6 to 7. You're only going to answer question 1 on page 10. So that's the only question I'm looking for tomorrow. So read pages 6 to 7. That's where the answers are. But review the pages we've already talked about. And answer on page 10, question number 1. So that's the only way to do it. So page 10, question number 1. Yes.
6 through 10?
6 through 7. And then you're jumping to page 10 to answer the question number 1. All right. I am done. Give me a